Right. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
How are you doing, brother?
Good. Uh,
Alhamdulillah. So today I wanted to talk about effective communication with other people. I think that a lot of problems that we have within our community, within the world, within ourselves can be resolved by communicating effectively with each other. And I think that a lot of times people really do not know how communication works. We don't People don't realize or understand that when you're communicating with someone, you have your own thoughts, ideas, and beliefs that you're bringing to the conversation. So what that means is that our past always influence how we're thinking about the present and how we're thinking about our future, right? So let's just say that I'm talking to you and you're saying like, hey, I'm gonna just say something that's like the general statement that I hear in the community all the time. Why is it that um, Muslim men all they want to marry is kuffars? Something like that. And then a man would get defensive, like, no, it's because y'all women, y'all don't know how to respect a woman, so we like to go outside or whatever. And so
respect.
this, yeah, they don't respect y'all, don't black women or Muslim women, whatever the case may be. It'd be some weird, strange conversations that people have. And it's because what they're doing is they're not really communicating what they feel. You're not saying, I feel like I'm unwanted because you don't pick people that look like me. That's not what they're going to say. What they're going to just do is accuse you of doing something. And then the other person gets defensive and they're like, well, it's because you don't. Instead of saying, well, I don't feel like I'm valued in relationships in my community. Because when you say something like that, doesn't that make you feel more empathetic to what the person is saying? Like, dang, I'm so sorry that I didn't even think about that. You don't feel like I respect you or that you're valuable. And what you said to me was you feel like you're unlovable because someone that looks like you is not willing to love you. That's a whole different kind of conversation. And it's an intimate conversation. Intimacy transcends problems. So when you take like people, they don't like being vulnerable because they feel like people will take advantage of them and that it makes them look weak. But really, that's strength. Do you know how hard it is to put your emotional feelings on the line and say, I feel like this when this is happening? That's a source of strength. And if someone takes advantage of that, it doesn't have anything to do with you being weak. It has everything to do with them being a predator. And
So
sometimes,
how? Mhm.
and
So
sometimes,
how? What? I'm sorry.
so sometimes we personalize other people's behavior, and we allow other people to change who we are, which is then we don't wind up having intimacy, which then we don't have fulfilling relationships with other people.
So what's the main factor that's preventing people from having good conversation or communication skills with each other? What are the blocks of it? Is blocking or preventing us?
I think it's a few things. One is conditioning, how we were raised to believe we should communicate with each other. But I think the biggest thing is fear. And I would say fear is false evidence appearing real. So we fear that if we are vulnerable, that means someone is going to take advantage of us. And then that means that we are weak. When really I was vulnerable to have a good and intimate relationship. Someone took advantage of that and they are a predator.
Does it happen more with women or with men or equally both?
Equally both. I think women happen to be more expressive, but it's still not intimate. They may say they hurt my feelings or something like that, but it's still not an intimate conversation because it's still they still always try to blame the other person for the way they feel. And I I hear people and I see people all the time when they'll say, um, you people talk about they say people talk about how I reacted to a situation, but they never talk about what you did to me to make me react that way. And I tell people you reacted that way because that's who you are. It had
Mm.
nothing to do with the other person. And I don't know if you remember this, but I always use the analogy of me slapping four people. I could slap four different people and they all respond differently. It's because of how they respond is who they are. What I'm doing is just a stimuli. Or like even with like women, like sometimes when we conversate with each other, like sometimes if I had something really, really exciting to tell one of my friends, I might come in, but like, bitch, let me tell you. And they be like, what? And it's exciting. But then you might have somebody else come and they be like, they might try to do the same exact thing. You be like, why are you disrespecting me like that? Don't talk to me about that. Like that. Because when we communicate with each other, it's about perception of what's happening. People think that when you're communicating, it's all about what the person is actually saying. That is like, and I'm just saying hypothetically because I don't know exactly, but it's like 10% of communication. It's also body language because I can say something right now to you and you might be like, oh, okay, I understand. Then I might change my tone or change my body language and it's going to communicate something different. And what happens is I'm leaving you up to interpret what I am trying to say and what
Mm.
I'm trying to communicate.
Mm. So body language is very important in communicating.
Absolutely. I think it's more important than what the words are actually saying. Because I could tell you how hurt I am and I'm crying and you're like, oh,
Mm.
she's really hurt. But then I could be talking about how hurt I am, but I'm yelling at you. It's just going to make you defensive, like, oh, she disrespected me, blah, 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 blah. But I'm still hurt. I'm still communicating the same words, but the way I'm behaving is making you interpret it differently.
And this does culture bear any factors in this? Because I lived overseas, right? And like I lived in the Middle East, so some Arabs, not all, like I lived in Egypt. Some of them they like to scream and shout, and it's normal. You
Mm-hmm.
and a person from not the cult from not within that culture see it, they think they're fighting, but in reality, they're not fighting. This is a normal
Yes.
conversation, and
Yes.
it's normal.
Culture has a lot to do with a lot of things because even if you think about I don't remember exactly who the story was about in regards to the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam time, but I remember it was a guy who wanted to complain about his wife. So he was going to one of the companions to complain about his wife, you know, yelling and stuff at him. When he got there, the companion was getting cussed out basically by his wife. And he was like, I heard. And then when the companion asked him, like, I heard that you was by my house. He was like, well, I was going to complain about my wife, but you were too. He said, but that woman buried my children.
It was
And
Umar radiallahu anhu, yeah,
yeah,
the hadith of
it's a
Umar.
yeah.
And people
Like,
like, this is the Caliph of Islam, and how his wife is yelling at him. And he said, this is my wife, or something like, well, the children of my mother, something like
mhm,
this,
yeah,
right? And he was going to him for advice about his wife screaming and yelling and stuff. Yes.
yeah. And it's
Uh,
and it's and that and even in that, sometimes people think that because culture always mean the dominant culture. You and your family of origin can have your own culture, so and that the way he grew up or however the case may have been, that may have been okay in his family, and it was like, we respect our women, they have this, blah 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 blah. And again, like, it's always about how we interpret information, because in that family of origin, there may not have been considered disrespect. They could like just being, she is emotional, she is expressing her feelings, and this is not disrespect. In someone else's family, it may be considered disrespect. But however, we got to also know that we have to start learning when something is disrespect versus someone that's my preference.
I got you. So this is a big question right here. So how about partners? How partners should communicate with each other? How to actively listen to others and why it's important?
Yes. So within partnerships, right?
Mm.
One, I think that especially in today's time, everybody should get premarital counseling, because then it goes through communication and how people communicate with each other. Um, like, so me, the way the kind of the way that I communicate is that if I have a problem about something, I try to figure out what was your thought process behind something that you've done, right? So like for me, I might like say if you didn't wash your dishes, I'm upset that you didn't wash the dishes. I saw you walk past the dishes 3, 4, 5 times and you didn't touch them. I might be like, "Hey, are you okay? What's going on with you?"
Mm.
And then you might say, "I got a lot on my mind. I was stressed about work. I was stressed about this, blah 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 blah." And then guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to forget about the dishes. Who cares? That's unimportant, you know. But sometimes I think people skip over to straight accusations. You just walked past the dishes 3 times,
Mm.
blah blah blah, and you didn't yada yada yada. But let's just say, especially like say if you're in polygyny, right? And you don't know at the other house the wife is sick or whatever the case may be. So he's worried about that, but he here with you because that's his obligation, and you didn't take in consideration that things may be going on with him too, and vice versa. Hey, I noticed that the house been untidy, blah blah blah. Instead of saying that, like, hey, especially if you know somebody's like a clean person. Hey, I noticed that you haven't been cleaning. Are you okay? Is something going on? And I might be like, my friend, oh, whatever the case may be. But first inquire about what's going on with people before you just quick to tear people a new one. I think that people, they become narcissistic in that way. And that's one of the things that I hate when people they start throwing around that term narcissism, and oh, he was narcissistic and so were you too.
Mm. Both of them being toxic, basically.
No, not being toxic. We all have some narcissistic tendencies.
Mm.
It's just it's just um it's just life. You know, Even down to like if you take like the like narcissistic personality disorder out of, let's just say narcissism, just in it of itself. It just means someone who is something that is you become self-centered about, right? But
Mm.
that's the extreme version. But in general, don't you eat food? Don't when your stomach start to growl, you eat, right? That's you thinking about you. That's like the foundation of what narcissism is you thinking about yourself. Well, I'm thinking about myself when I pray because I'm trying to get a little closer to Allah so I can get the Jannah. That's narcissism. We all have pieces of it. If not, we will all die.
Mm.
Literally, we would die if when you come out the womb of your mother, you are narcissistic. Like it's all about you. You don't start growing out of that until almost late teens, early adulthood when you start to think about other people.
Mm.
It becomes
So
it
it
becomes
becomes who you are.
extreme. It becomes extreme if you couple it with trauma. And then that's when it becomes extreme and then people can't think outside of that. But
So
in
with
general that
mm, I'm sorry.
that's no, that's it. In general though, we all have some narcissistic tendencies. It's just the reality of it.
So so my question is, um, how would communication skills with our partner, how would that transfer into society as a whole? If I'm not a good communicator with my partner or spouse, then maybe I'm most likely not a good communicator with people outside my house. Is this so?
Absolutely. But I do want to finish answering the other question that you had about communicating with your partner and how to listen. So when you are talking to your partner also too, it's important that not to have expectations, right? So what I mean by expectations, it shouldn't be that, hey, if I walked past the dishes 3 times, I would have washed them at least on the second time I walked past them. Because they're not you. They don't think like you. That's just it. Period.
Man, don't think about dishes. I'm not, you know that right now.
I know, but I use it as a simple example because if I make it too complex, it's gonna roll right over people's head.
Mm.
You really have to stop and think. I always tell people this is how I do it. One, I would say, what I am upset about it, is it wrong in a technical sense? Like, did they cheat? Did they lie? Did they steal? Did they kill? Or they committing sure. Like, is it something that's major? No, it's not. Okay. Is it a preference? Yes, it's a preference. So that means my approach is going to be different versus something that's wrong that everybody in this uh, world will say that is wrong versus, hey, this is my opinion and this is something that I don't like. Because if it's something that I don't like, I'm going to say, hey, I really don't like X, Y, and Z because of whatever. However, I know it's not your responsibility to make me happy in this area because it's my stuff. But I'm hoping as my partner, we can accommodate me and we can make some concessions and meet in the middle. So, to meet in the middle with those dishes, hey, if you walk past them, would it be possible if you can wash them? If you can't, can you at least say, hey, babe, I know I walk past the dishes, but I got a lot going on. Can I do them another time?
Mm.
And communicate that. But you know what we do as people, and we both do it, men and women. We think people mind readers. I would have did this, or why wouldn't they? Because they ain't you. Like, if everybody was like you, this place would be a very boring place. No one would talk to each other. Because why? Why would we need to talk when I know what you're about to say? Because I'm about to say it too. We both about to say it. How can we learn? How can we get to know one each other? How can we, this world go around if everybody is the same? It just doesn't make sense. But we take that to a whole nother level that we think that people can read our minds and do what we think that they should be doing. When that's not even the case. Nobody's like you, and you shouldn't want nobody like be like you. Like, listen, it's only everybody else is taken up. I'd rather be me, and that's it. But then when you're communicating with somebody, I always tell people before you go into explaining yourself about whatever it is, make sure you understand what they're saying. Repeat back what they said in your own words. So if you like, oh, you walked past the dishes 3 times, you didn't wash them. So what I hear you saying is that you seem a little bit upset that I walked past the dishes and didn't wash them. Because then they gonna say yes or no. Or they might ask them like, no, I said 3 times, being petty, but whatever. It gives them the opportunity to correct you because people sometimes don't always communicate what they need either. They might say something very vaguely. And I know I get a bad rep for this because I'll ask questions and they be like, isn't it obvious? And I'll be like, no, I'm just making sure that what my idea of what you're talking about is the same idea of what you're talking about. I don't want to make any assumptions because, think about how many words we have for money, right? We got moolah, bread, guap, whatever. But I might go somewhere else and I might say those things and they be like, I don't know what that means, or it may mean something different to them. Like soda and pop. I might go and be like, yeah, I want a pop. And if I'm down south and I say I want to pop it, I want a soda. Down here, if you say I want to pop, I want some of your soda.
Mm.
So if we coming from different cultures, the same words may not always mean the same. So that's why I tell them you should always reflect back what they say, but in your own words to make sure that they are aligned with each other.
Yeah, communication seems like for marital discord or marital problem, it's the number one thing. Uh, Spouses. Um,
Actually,
so
it's finances, it's money.
it's money and communicate. It's money. It's money.
It's money. It's money.
I know people are married. They don't speak each other language, and as long as the money good, the marriage is good. When the money is not good,
Yeah.
marriage is not good. They don't even speak each other language.
Money is
uh,
the number one cause of marital discord, which it shouldn't be.
mm,
If you follow
Unfortunately,
the if you follow the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it wouldn't be an issue.
yeah. To modern women, I think I know. I think because the lifestyle, not just being a modern woman, but modern society, it's very much of uh, to if you're poor, what type of burden you're gonna go through due to it. So I can see why people fight over it, right? Um, So related to being an active listener,
Mhm.
uh, how does communication skills between one spouse, how does that transfer with now communicating with people outside?
So the sad part about it is when people communicate with people outside, guess what they do? This is when they follow the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. They gave people 70 concessions for other people outside the home. When the people that's inside your home, they gotta deal with your bull crap.
Hmm,
You got no patience with them. But
hmm,
when it comes to your boss, everybody, you chuck it up. You listen to what they say. You don't say anything back, and I think that's wrong. I think it's very backwards. I give people more heat that don't live in my house than people that don't live in my house than people. I give more heat to people that don't live in my house than the people that do, because my family deserve the best of me.
hmm,
And I think people have gotten away from that where, especially, and I'm going to say this for women, because I don't know about men, but I know for women, you know, I ain't going to be no housewife. I'm not going to listen to my husband. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that. But then you go to work and you let somebody else map out your whole entire day, when you can take breaks, how long you can take a break, how much you're going to get paid. You do all of this for your boss. You go above and beyond because you say, hey, I want that promotion, blah, blah, blah. I want this and I want that. And you'll do this all for your boss, all for a company. But then you go home and you tell the person that loves you, I ain't listening to nothing you saying. That is so strange to me. That is the
sure.
most strangest thing to me in the world. And I hear it sometimes because I only talk about women. And I think I think another problem that people have when it comes like to podcasts and stuff like that. People always want to talk about what the opposite sex is not doing, when you don't know the struggles of the opposite sex and why they're behaving that way. You just see the behaviors. Yeah,
Hmm,
so that's why, like, for me, I might say, like, as a community, like, statistically, yeah, men should start taking care of their wives like they should. But I'm not going to say why they're not doing it. I mean, I might say, like, oh, because it's not passed down. I might say general statements, but sometimes I feel like people, both sides, be going too hard on the opposite. But what are you doing? Because the only person that you can change is you. And I say this in therapy too. I always ask, because I do a lot of therapy with women. I ask them, because we're natural caretakers, and I ask us, how hard is it to change yourself? They always say, oh, it's so hard to change. It takes me a long time. I said, so why do you expect to change someone else?
that's very true. In Islam, when it comes to communication skills, I was just reading an article preparing for this talk, from a psychology point of view of communication, right?
Mm-hmm.
And about being an active listener. I was thinking over one of my studies about an Arabic language. We say, what is kalam? What is speech, right? And this goes back to the essentials of Islam and Islamic science. We say in the Arabic language, al-kalam huwa lafz al-murakkab al-mufid bil-wadi', right? And it has a meaning related to the Arabic language and its usage. But in the Arabic language, it must be beneficial for the person you're speaking to, that they understand what you're saying, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in Islam, part of scholar or a student of knowledge or a good listener, that you will find that some of the biggest scholars were good listeners, and they used to sit down and listen to what people had to say. They would sit down, observe, listen, and they would be with the average Muslim, right? The average people, the layman peoples, and they will listen to their concerns and deal with them, right? I noticed in today's time, some Muslim scholars don't even mix with the average person, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, Back with communication skills. You'll
Yes.
find that some people, like I hear some women, when they complain about the husband, well, when the husband's outside the home, he has the best character.
Mhm.
But in the house, he's the opposite person, right? And then for the good marriages where people don't complain, the husband and the wife, they're the best listeners outside the home, inside the home. And you can see the reflection with their children, right? You can see how they interact is very good. So with listening skills now, on how to be, a lot of us we don't know how to be active
Quiet.
listeners or good communication skills. A lot of us we don't know.
But you know, the biggest problem with active listening is, again, people, what they do is they allow their own experiences to influence what the people are saying to them. And that's the worst kind of thing you're doing, is because now you're interpreting it differently than what the person is actually saying. So you have to strip all of that away. And what may make it easier, and this is something that I do for myself, is when people are talking to me, I say, I wonder why they think like that. I don't say, oh, they think like that because X, Y, and Z. Be a curious listener. Like, be curious about why somebody is thinking that, why they talking that way. Because when you become curious, you start thinking about what they truly mean. And let's just say, because and I'm gonna give you an example. I have one of my ex-husbands. He loved to joke, and I couldn't stand none of his jokes. I thought none of them was funny. Other people might have enjoyed his jokes. I didn't think none of them were funny. But it's because I believe that he was just a malicious person.
Was
So
he
it
joking
wouldn't
about you?
matter.
What was he
It
joking
would have been
about you?
anybody. No, it'd have been
Oh,
anybody.
okay.
And I used to be like, why would you say that? That's very malicious. Because I just believe that he was a malicious person.
Mm.
But I had other exes, but we would bust on each other all the time. And it used to be the most funniest thing ever. But because I didn't believe that they intended ill harm to anybody, yeah, they just wanted to lighten moods and stuff like that. So you always have to pay attention to what your own beliefs is about what's happening.
But do people say some jokes have certain percentage of truth behind them when people
That's the
say them?
best jokes. That's the best jokes. And they
That's why
so
I don't
funny.
joke with women. I don't joke with women or spouse because that bring problems.
Well, you just haven't found the right one, because me and the ex, we used to bust on each other and stuff like that, and it used to be so funny.
Mm.
But again, it's about, what do you believe about that person? Because if you believe that that person is malicious, it don't matter. It could be the most funniest joke. You could have thought that they was like a Kevin Hart if you didn't know him, but it's not funny, because I believe you're malicious, and beliefs have a lot to do with how you interpret something.
You know, and
So
but in Islam, when it comes to communication and speaking, the Prophet, there's a hadith. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Kullu hayyin wa layyin was hurrima ala nar, kullu hayyin wa layyin wa sahl wa qarib ila nas." Right? The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Forbidden for the fire, kullu hayyin wa layyin." Layyin means easy going. Person who is easy going. Layin means soft spoken. Qarib, easy accessible, meaning that when a person talks and deal with a person, anybody's approachable to him. He's easygoing. He's close to the people. He's easy with himself. He's easy with others, right? That's also part of communication. When you say laying, that means soft spoken and
mhm.
dealing with peoples, right? So we understand that being soft spoken or in the form of communication is very important. You have some people's, you know, I think including myself in writing, that a lot of people, when I write, people say you sound aggressive in my writing. But when I'm writing for myself, when I'm writing and I'm talking about religion, I'm going to talk like how a lawyer would talk about legal stuff, right? So to you, to that other person, it might feel harsh, but I'm not being harsh, right? I'm explaining things. But for some person who might interpret the same thing, they might say, oh, okay, this brother, he's teaching something.
Mm-hmm.
Another person might see it and say it's harsh. So are we lost a little bit? Communication is misunderstood when we're like on social media, talking, texting to people, emails. Is there's a little bit of loss of communication? People could get things misunderstood.
Yes, because you know what, we have this. We was talking about gentle parenting at my last podcast, which I think is a great thing with gentle parenting. But you know what the thing about it is that I think people think that just because you do something gently, that means you downplay it. I could gently tell you the truth, and it's still going to hurt, and it's still going to seem aggressive because that's your interpretation of what's happening. People don't like being corrected. So they say that it's aggressive, but no, it's straightforward. It's assertive. I did say it gently because not being gentle could have been like, are you, or like, so let's just say it's about something you talk about religion. And I'm like, are you effing stupid? The Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, blah, blah. No, that's aggressive. That's mean. But if I say, hey, you know, the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, don't fornicate. Stop doing it. It's not aggressive. It's straightforward. It's assertive. I'm just telling you what it is. It's no way around it. But see, what people want you to do is like, oh, well, is it something else you can do instead of having sex outside of marriage? Like, what do you think? No, it's no other way to say it. Because if I say it other ways, then guess what? It leaves room for interpretation. That's
Mm,
inaccurate. Because what we're gonna do is the heart is, you know, is wicked. Okay.
mm,
And it's going to want to do what it wants to do. So if you don't say what it really is, it could be left up to the person to say, "Oh, you know, like I had just to give you an example, like I was, it was this brother that I had knew, and he was talking about like fornication and so I was like, no, you just can't do that. I was like, that's not okay. He was like, no, I know it's not okay. He's like, but you know, Allah is merciful. I said, I understand that Allah is merciful, but that don't mean that just because he's merciful you should go out and do it. He said, yeah, but then he tried to use hadiths to support that. Basically, he could do whatever he wanted to do but be repentant. Like that fine line of, and I was like, "Are you playing in the Lord's face?" He's like, "No, no, no, I'm not." I said, "You are." I said, "Because you're trying to justify." I said, "I know we're all sinners. I know we're going to fall short, but the way you are talking is as if, let me do what I want. I can repent, and it's going to be all good, and I'm gonna rely on His mercy." Now, if somebody else who was, um, I don't want to say mean, but like just had a little bit less intelligence, they'll be like, oh, see, yes, all right, I shouldn't feel that bad. Let me just go out and live my life. And I'll just, you know, make Toba and I'm going to be okay. And then you wonder why on a day of judgment, you like, Lord, like you get in a fire. You took
or you got
advantage
an STD, or you got an S.
or that. But, you know, you can't do that. You have to mean what you say and say what you mean. And that's why I said like when I had said like people be more gentle with people outside than inside their home. What I was meaning is that they take a softer approach. I'm more softer really with my family than with people out in the streets. In the streets, I'm just gonna be like, this is what it is. Now with my children, I might say, hey, you know, the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said don't fornicate, and Allah said don't fornicate and whatever. So what's going on with you? Like, why do you think? And I might inquire more from them, you know, just to get down to the bottom of it, because I'm going to care for my family. That's a part of caring, but still holding them accountable. People on the streets, I'm just going to say, no, you can't do that.
I was about CBT. 'Cause I know you're a CBT practitioner. And CPT, I know that they gear away from telling people what's wrong with them. Instead of, they ask some questions to allow them to see the wrongness in themselves. Right. This is one of the approaches in CBT.
So I'm not a CBT practitioner. I utilize their techniques.
Mm,
Um, so with CBT, what they basically they Um, I'm more eclectic, so I don't want to really speak to strict CBT. That's what I lean more towards when
Mm.
it comes to counseling. So I look at the behaviors, I look at the cognitions that influence the behaviors, and I see how they can change it. So, like
Because in that approach, you can't be upfront sometimes. Like, for example, I noticed myself from being involved in dawah. If I tell what I'm associated with, somebody I don't know or do know, I say, brother, that's haram. Or I give them some advice, religious advice. I have one of my friends, right? I hope you see this video, right? So I told him one day, I'm like, he was asking me for something, money. He was away studying or something like that. And I said straight up to him, something in the way I think, won't you come back and get a job for 6 months? Ain't nobody gonna take care of you. You grown man right now. Once you get a job, that stuff you away learning, you using this for excuse for like what 5 years now, no degree. People gonna figure out you got no degree. You've been there for 5 years. You need to go get a job. Man, mad, upset, right? That was a four, and I'm being upfront with him. But if I turn around, if I look at some of the approaches with CBT, I will ask in a different way. For example, make him think for himself. Would it be better? Is another way you could do what you need to do to get what you need? Think of another way, or give me example on how you could get this. You know, are these a better questions for communicating with people's? Because sometimes the being forward for some people, man, I have a lot of people mad with me because I'm be forward with them and I be have a straight face. I'm not yelling, not screaming, but a lot of people don't want to hear the up forward things. Is it better to use those approaches?
it depends on a person.
My
Um,
friend is hard headed. He's hard headed.
yeah,
He ain't
so
speak to me like
hard-headed
for
people,
2 years now.
yeah, so yeah,
Hard.
hard-headed people's CBT approaches will work better because it makes them feel like that they came up with the idea. Somebody like me using CBT approaches don't work.
You
And the
need
reason,
DBT. You
huh,
need DBT, right?
no, I don't need DBT. Just say what you gotta say. Because
So,
yeah, just say it, like just say it. Because when people have an ulterior motives and are trying to get me to think of something on my own, again, I told you, I think because I've been a therapist for way too long, I don't come with assumptions about what you're trying to tell me. So when you're asking me a question where you're trying to get me to somewhere that you want me to go, I'm going to be like, I have no idea where you're trying to go. Like, just say it. And then if you say it and I agree with you, then I'm like, oh, I agree. And if I agree with part of it, I might say, I agree with this part, but I don't agree with this part because this is for me. And then it's other, like, because I'm in therapy now and I'm about to change my therapist because she keep trying to do motivational interviewing on me. And I'm just like, stop. Can you stop doing it? What are you trying to tell me? Just say what you're trying to tell me. I'm not the type of person that's a follower and if you give me good advice and I agree with you, I'm going to do the good advice and I'm not going to blame you if it fails because that's the fear that therapists have is that if I do give you advice and you take the advice and the advice doesn't work for you for whatever reason,
mm,
you have an out to blame me that it didn't work, even though you had the choice to do it. I'm
mm.
not like that. Just say what you gotta say. And I used to tell her that all the time. Like, you please stop asking me those questions. And I had told her, I said, you ask me questions that are irrelevant. And she looking at me like, what? But again, somebody else, they will be upset that I said that. Like, but it's the truth. You're asking me irrelevant questions that have nothing to do with nothing. And I think I'm
Mm.
a little bit harder on it because I'm a therapist too, so it makes it worse. But the point that I'm trying to make is you have to learn people's temperament and know the way they think. And the only way to do that is you got to test the waters and see how they respond to stuff when you ask them questions. And that also goes into really listening to what a person say because as a therapist, I listen to what people say and what they don't say. And I know people always be like, how the heck you listen to what people don't say also? Because if I have a person who we're talking about family of origin and I'm growing up, I've had people, they'll talk about their whole family.
Mm.
By the end of it, they never said one thing about their father or one thing about their mother or their sibling
Got
or whatever. That's interesting because I don't care about what you said. Now I'm more interested about why did you leave that out?
it. Mm.
because it's something there that you may not even realize that you avoided, or you may be intentional. I don't know. But guess what? Now I'm curious. Hey, I
mm,
noticed that you talked about all this, but you never said nothing about your dad. Or remember when you told me that your mom, like I had one client where she was like, she in drug and alcohol treatment and said, I had a great mother. She gave me everything that I've always wanted. I was like, she was just an amazing mom. You know, she just drank alcohol.
mm,
Now, the part that so everybody heard that, but what people don't hear is if she was drinking alcohol, how was she really a good parent? Because now I'm curious. So, what kind of alcoholic was she? Did she drink so much that everybody knew that she was an alcoholic, or was she just an alcoholic that she might drink once or twice on the weekends or something like that? Like, can you tell? Oh, everybody knew she was a drunk. I said, so if everybody knew she was a drunk, she was always drunk. She gave you everything that you need materialistically. That's what you said. So who was there for you emotionally? Because now I need to know emotionally who was there for you. She was like, well, uh, was she? Well, no, not really, because she was always passed out. Oh, she was always passed out. So she emotionally neglected you. Well, yeah. To her, the whole situation of how happy she was to have this mom when she was neglected.
mm.
But
So
that's
basically, I was going to say basically dysfunctions prevent people having good relationships and communication skills.
absolutely, absolutely. You have to talk to. It starts with kids. You have to talk to your kids, and even if you're punishing them, I know people will say that's the weirdest thing ever, but I always used to ask my kids like, "Why are you in trouble? What did you do that made you in trouble? Why do you think that I'm upset about what you did?" Like I make them really think about all of the things that happened because again, it helps them to make decisions. You know what I'm saying? So it's like I question them about everything, and then I enforce the punishment, whatever the punishment is. Or if it's a natural consequence, I'll be like, so why do you think that that happened after you did X, Y, and Z? You didn't do your homework and you got an F. Why do you think that happens? Well, because I didn't put forth the effort to do. I make them talk it out, and even as they're talking about friends or something like that, like I had my oldest son one time came home and was like, "Oh my God, mom, this girl in my class, she gets on my nerves. She's so annoying. She keep making this noise." I said, "She's annoying. Why is she annoying you?" Oh, because like the noise is just, it just annoys me. Like I said, so she's not, so you not accepting her for who she is because no, it was like that's how she laughed. And I said, so you're not accepting her for the way her voice sounds? I was like, could she really help that her laugh is like that? And he like, well, no, no, not really. Like that's just the way her voice sounds. And I'm like, so you're judging her based off of something that's out of her control. Is that fair to her?
Mm,
Because when you do stuff like that, it makes people really think that you should be more accepting of people's differences.
mm,
But then also too, like, hey, well, I don't like being touched like that. My friends know that. And I have friends that's touchy feely. But because we know each other, sometimes she'll be like, and she'll be like, I'm sorry, I'm not gonna touch you. I'm like, thank you. But if she do, cause she forget, I don't say anything either.
mm,
Because
mm.
it's like
So I,
making concessions.
so I have another question with you bringing that up with communication. If a person has a BPD, right, or some type of dysfunction, personality dysfunction, for those who don't understand these terms, um, would that affect their communication skills, make them not effective? Or I give you one example. One day I was giving a lecture, and there's a sister in the community at the time. She's schizophrenia, right? She has schizophrenia. She's bipolar. She's been diagnosed with bipolar and schizophrenia, right? So she's mad with me to this day, man. So one day she has mentioned she came. I was giving a lecture to a group of peoples, and they were laughing. I gave a small little joke, and they was laughing. So she interrupted the lecture by asking for some donations at the time. Right? She's sending one of her children in. So the people was laughing from a joke I said previous before the child asked, and I told the child, I wrote a letter telling the mother, I'm in the middle of giving a lecture. You don't notice I'm lecturing peoples. This is not the time to ask for that. I wrote that as a response. I didn't say it on a microphone. I didn't say no one could hear me. I wrote it down on a piece of paper, told the mother, I'm lecturing. I can't do this right now while I'm lecturing. She knows better, right? So the mother interpreted that. The
Wait, stop.
laughing,
Wait,
yeah.
stop. Did you hear what you just said about what you perceive? You said she knows better. You made the
Yeah,
assumption.
I know her. I know her. There's somebody I know. She knows better. Trust me, she know better. So, but she interpreted it.
I'm
The
telling you.
people's laughing at the joke, that they were laughing at her. That everybody was laughing at her. And she wrote it out on a piece of paper.
Mhm.
I wrote the answer, and I think I told the son, not right now, right? I wrote it out, the answer, and I told him. She said the people were laughing at her.
Mhm.
You got me? And
Uh-huh.
I said to her, how you feel? How? And she asked one of her grown sons to call me. And I didn't know she had a BPD. I didn't know that she had been diagnosed with this. So her grown son called me and he was like, yeah, man, why are you making fun of my mother? I was like, making fun of your mother? I was like, what happened? He's like, yeah, my mother came, asked for something and said that people was laughing at her in the mass shit. I said, do your mother got a mental health issue? He's like, yeah. I said, oh, what's her mental health issue? He told me what it was. I said, no one's laughing at your mother. I was in the middle of a lecture and she asked, and he's like, yeah, my mother got, this problem, right? And so does these type of mental health issues affect a person's communication skills?
Okay, so I want to go back to the beginning. Your interpretation. You like, I know her, and I know she knows better, right?
Mm,
That doesn't mean she know better.
she
Because
do.
I'm gonna tell you why you're making the assumption. When
Mm,
people have certain disorders,
mm.
especially if they unmedicated, it actually breaks down and
She
deteriorates.
medicated. She she was medicated. Trust me, she was medicated. She had
Listen,
taken her. Mm.
listen to what I'm saying to you because you're making assumptions. This is how
Listen.
communication breaks down.
Mm,
I'm telling you, like right now, my mother is medicated. She takes her
mm.
medication for bipolar disorder, blah, 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 blah. But it's just certain things my mother just does not understand. You would think she understands because she can have a logical conversation with you and you won't think nothing of it. But then she'll say something and you'll be like, wait, like, no, you can't possibly think that way. And I'm going to give you an example, right? And this is a very, very personal example. My mother, when I tell you she's very intelligent, one day one of my childhood friends reached out to me that I haven't talked to since we were children. And I was so excited. So I was like, Mom, oh my God, look, one of my girlfriends just reached out to me that I haven't talked to since we were kids. And I read her the message and I was like, isn't that great? And she was like, oh my gosh, she sounds like she grown up. I was like, I know, right? I was like she's really an adult now. She said, because you know she was out there, right? So I'm like, wait, huh? Because it's just like, what do you mean? She was like, yeah, her mom told me that she used to mess with her boyfriends. So I'm like, Mom, you do realize that the last time we saw her, she was 11 years old. So if her mom said that she was messing with her boyfriend, you do realize that that's called rape, right? A child cannot initiate sex. You do realize that. And she was looking at me. But anybody who have known, if you was to ever meet my mom, you would have never thought she would think like that. Because in general, she can have a regular conversation, and she's very intelligent, especially streetwise. But certain areas is like is eroded, and I
Mm,
was just like, so she just walked away. But this is not the first time I've had a conversation with my mom about stuff like this.
mm,
But it surrounds that particular kind of thing. So when you like, oh, I know she knows better because I know her, it may not necessarily mean that she may know better not to interrupt lectures, but in her mind, she might be like, oh my God, I need donations because my kids are starving. Let me ask. And then so when she asks, because it's like, this is important to her, she's not thinking about that you're doing a lecture. She's thinking about, I need to make sure these basic needs are being met. And then when you said no, even though they were already laughing and stuff like that, let's just say somebody at that moment, because again, it's about perception. Let's just say at that moment when you wrote it back and it got sent back and she read it, somebody started laughing louder, but they may have had a joke over there, and she like, they laughing at me, even though that's not what's happening.
mm,
But again, when people have mental health disorders, especially if they went years or some time without being medicated, their brain deteriorates over time. And even if they are medicated, depending on what kind of mental health disorder, how bad it is, medications don't work. It may appear to work because they may stop having delusions, but other things are still being impacted, because especially with schizophrenia, you have positive symptoms and you have negative symptoms. And basically, like, positive symptoms are having the delusions and all that kind of stuff. That's, stuff that's being
see,
added.
hallucinating stuff. Trust me.
Yeah,
Yeah, I see.
those are positive symptoms.
Mhm.
Those are the best symptoms to have, because when you get medication, it works. But when you have negative symptoms, which is things that are taken away, sometimes people, they might, people who have schizophrenia, they might have flat affects, and they seem like they always, um, so like it may seem like empathy was taken away, like stuff that makes people quote normal or taken away. Some of those things that are taken away, you can't put them back even though they have medications.
Mm,
And that's why I
mm,
say you may assume that she may know, because you're like, oh, I know them, they would have never done this in this instant. But again, it's about perception. So in this particular perception, it may not always be the case.
mm.
So again, sometimes, even if and what's even more strange, and what you should have really realized that the person really don't know, is because if you know your mother have a mental health disorder, because trust me, I'm quite sure this is not the first time she's done something like this.
Mm.
Like that, usually they do the same thing over and over and over again.
That was my first experience with her, actually. When I
No, that was your
that
first experience.
first,
What I'm saying, as a son
mm,
who grew up with my mother,
mm.
this was not his first experience or his
Right, this
first
was not his
go
first
around.
experience. Yeah, he explained that with me. He explained these things. Yeah.
So, what kinds of mental health issues do he have to even say, let me call, when you know that this is stuff that your mother did?
And he does have mental health issues too.
I know, because it would just make logical sense,
Yeah,
you
he
know.
does.
So that's
Mm.
why I said,
And he's
when,
not getting medicated. And to
but
my
see, that's my
knowledge, right.
but that's my point. Sometimes you gotta listen to what people say, because I heard what you said, and even as you explained the story, I said, "Oh, her son got mental health issues." I
Yeah, he
already
does.
knew, even though you didn't say it,
Mm.
because you have to, if you know that your mother is like this, and you call and question about people laughing at her, knowing that her behavior, people probably wasn't laughing, they was laughing at something else, and you know that this is how she is. And even as I say, you're like, yeah, that's how she is, but then why did you call?
Mm. Because in my mind now, because I was working as the imam that time, this is my first experience dealing with people like this, right? And I
People that
started
have mental
noticing there's
health,
a lot of people like this in the community, especially
people,
in the black community. You
people
know,
that have mental health issues.
Mm. They
You
stay
saying
come to
people?
the mass.
You saying
They come to
people
the
like
mass.
this?
Like her, I mean, her case, in her case, I don't want to mention because she be cursing me out. She be inboxing me sometimes,
Alhamdulillah.
but she be cursing me out. But I had met other people's in her same scenario, same situation. But at the time, working as the imam, think about it. The average Muslim imam,
Hmm.
he doesn't know about Islamic rulings. All right. So I, at the time, understood about Islamic rulings. Somebody who's in mental health, okay, some certain things they is not obligatory on them and things like that, right?
Hmm.
But now dealing with them in the community, that's a whole different experience. How to pinpoint when somebody has a mental health issue, and then how to deal with that person, because you can't deal with them like a normal Muslim, right?
Hmm.
So that start meeting, like, I'm very honest. A lot of people who are mentally ill, they come to me. I go to the masjid, they see me, they know me, they come ask for help. I talk to some of them. Um, and then I start noticing, man, I hope I'm not crazy. Because they come. Wherever I go, wherever I'm working at, in the masjid, the Muslim community, the people know me, they come, they ask for help, or I try to help them. Some of them need shelter, some of them got problems with getting their medication. Some of them have problems with their health care. Some of them, they have a lot of them have financial problem, even though they get a disability. I don't know. They spend all their money, you know. So I meet a lot of them working in the community, but I notice the general people who in the community don't know how to deal with them. They like shun them away, run them out the masjid. They treat them harsh. So I try not to be like this. Because one day I told one of them one day, a sister that because they on drugs and got mental health. So they be doing stealing. So one day I told the sister, yo, you and your husband can't stay in the masjid right now. I ain't got nothing for you. I know the husband, he's on drugs, right?
Mm.
And I know they still. So when she left, I didn't know she was really looking for something. My wife at the time was saying that that lady was crying. When you said that, she was crying. I seen her on the woman's side crying. I said, yeah, our husband, this guy's a thief, and we caught him before.
Mm.
So some people don't know how to deal with them, their situations. Then you have those from them who's on drugs and stuff like that. And then when they come to communicate and people talk with them, people shun them off. This is the big thing in some of the inner cities. This is a big issue. Like I know a sister right now. They come to me on Facebook. She is schizophrenia, right?
Mm.
And I tell her that she needs to. She always fall into Zina, actually. So I told this sister one of her solutions could be because she's diagnosed with being schizophrenia, and I know people who are bipolar like her. Some of them have over sexualized, the best way to say it, right? So
Mm.
I told her the what she could do is go to the masjid, start communicating with the women in the community, and build a relationship with the women. But she's anti-social. So when she goes to the masjid, she says the people don't want to talk to me there. I said, are you sure? Or you don't want to talk to the people there? So, and then she says that no one reaches out to her. Then I said, what's the nationality? No one's black. She said they're mostly Indians, Desi Muslims, and Arabs. I said, okay, it could be true, but no one know how to treat them, and people might see something's wrong with them, but their communication skills and people who are saying don't know how to communicate. So, what's some solutions for people like this? Because trust me, I meet a lot of them wherever I go.
Well, one, you can stop saying you meet a lot of them.
Mm,
You know,
okay.
I meet people with mental health issues. Because when you say them, you're ostracizing them already. I meet
Mm,
them. That's like if you go into a community and a white person, if a white person came and be like, yeah, I tried to talk to them. What you gonna assume? Like, what you mean?
mm, gotcha.
Yeah. So let's, some I talk to some people who have mental health issues. They struggle with mental health concerns because they are not their mental health, just like I am not my skin color. Um,
Mm,
that's one is learning that, but the real thing is people need to learn how to treat themselves first. I can't expect you to show somebody respect and be respectful and inclusive when you're not respectful and inclusive of your own self.
mm,
You don't even respect yourself.
mm,
um you doing things that put your own self in harm's way. Like I have a neighbor right now who she on Mother's Day she was arguing with this guy. She was like, yeah, my boyfriend and he smoked crack, and I'm like, why you with somebody which you got your own house, you got your own place, you got all this, you messing with somebody who is utilizing substances to cope with his emotions.
mm,
But then why would I expect you to treat someone else kindly when you don't even know your own worth and being with somebody who would treat you kindly?
mm,
So first, it always starts with our own self of getting the help that we need to value our own self. Then self-esteem. Um, I, People love that word, like you gotta raise your self-esteem. That's really not how it works. I call self-esteem others' esteem because how do people learn how to have self-esteem? You know how people learn how to have self-esteem.
how was that?
We pour in our children what they're good at. That's how it starts. When they're growing up, you're like, oh my God, that's amazing. You're good at math. You're good at writing. You're good at reading. You're good at this. This is amazing. And you basically build up your child. But if you tear them down, then they have low self-worth. So then they have to reparent themselves. So it starts there. First, as parents, we have to try not to put on our children our own baggage that we grew up with. That's one, to build their self-esteem. So when they grow, you ever realize, and I mean this with love, and I'm not saying this is true for everyone. You ever realize that women who are like are physically pretty to people, I'm going to say people because that's just because, you know, they have lower self-esteem than women who don't.
Right, I noticed that. Yes.
And I think it's because when women or and men have daughters that maybe not as pleasing to the eye, not always, I noticed that they be like, don't let nobody tell you nothing. You're pretty. You're this. You're that. So then they walk around like they hot shot. And I be like, go ahead, girl, do your thing. And then the ones who are pretty, you would like, and you like, she's always seeking attention. She always seeking this because then you will notice that when she was growing up, her mom would like, yeah, she thinks she cute, blah, blah, blah. And she need to sit her behind down somewhere. She too hot and she too fresh. And that's what we do. We don't even realize we tearing them down. So then you have these adults that's like who or keep looking for outside validation who are actually are quote pleasing to the eye than those who are not, because we understand that that's true, but for some reason we have gotten far away from that. So one, you have to start with our how we raising our children, but also two, starting to love ourselves. If we didn't get that, to start reparenting ourselves, to love ourselves, because when we start to love ourselves we get to love other people. And
Mm-hmm.
you cannot say that you love your neighbor who may have a mental health condition. I mean, you can't say that you love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and you love his messenger when you can't even love the person that you see that's right next door.
Correct. Correct. Correct.
Like, I'm sorry. That just doesn't even make sense to me.
And
And
and I was saying that also go with the argument. I just want to say for people on Facebook, my associates and friends, people follow. There's some brothers that say, I don't want to marry a sister with kids, right?
mhm.
They are burdened. So, sister with kids, they're worthless. And I was letting some brothers know, well, those Muslim kids, they're your brothers in Islam. They have honor. So when you saying these things, you're talking about Muslim children also. So that I'm thinking about when you just said it, it's
Mhm.
also answers that. Continue, please. I mean to cut you off.
No, 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 that's fine. Okay, I think that was very important too to say something like that. And you have to, so yeah, it start with you. You have kids, instilling on them there. Because when people who love themselves, they're more loving to other people.
Mm,
I can only dish out what's in me. If
mm,
I'm miserable, mean, and all that, I mean, if I'm miserable,
mm,
how can you expect me to be happy with other people? I can't. That's really difficult. And if I am doing that, because I do know some people who are like miserable on the inside, but when you meet them in public, they seem all happy. However, over time, they get more miserable. And who get impacted are the children and the people that's what's inside the home.
mm,
The ones that, oh, they so nice in the public and then in the home they abusive. Is those people. So that's number one. You got to do that. But then one of the things that I tell people all the time, because we had this, in America, they always say, oh, treat people how you want to be treated. I don't do that. And I know you might
mm,
be like, why would you? I treat people how they want to be treated.
mm,
And that requires that I get to know them.
mm,
Your likes, your dislikes. Now, initially, I might treat you how I want to be treated, like general respect that everybody have. But even still, general respect may be to me, may not be to you. Because I know in some cultures, uh, I know in a part of Asian culture, I can't remember which one, looking someone in the eye is disrespect. But
mm,
I won't know that until I get to know them. And then in America, not looking somebody in the eye, I mean, you're lying. So
mm.
it's important to get to know people. And I know it was another culture that if you,
It's from the Sunnah really not to look people's in the eye.
no,
Lower your gaze a little bit. Even men with men a little bit in Islam.
but
And definitely with women, definitely. The men with women, definitely, you don't look them in the eyes and stuff like that. But in America, people take that as disrespect, especially
mhm.
women. Oh, you don't like women because you're not looking me in my face and stuff like that. People, yes, okay. Mm,
Or I know it's one culture that if you show the bottom of your feet towards them, that's disrespectful. And so it requires that you really get to know people. But you know what? You got to be open to the feedback. Hey, in my culture, that's disrespectful, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. And be okay with it and be open to those things. And when you are open like that, when people who have mental health issues come and say, "Hey, I don't like to be treated this way," it gives you some concessions. But also, it doesn't mean though that you have to deal with all of their behavior because again, they're not stupid. They just have some mental health issues, and sometimes it might be like, "Hey, let's have this conversation." You still have to get the appropriate help that you may need, especially people who like have personality disorders. You got to get the help that you need, and if you
You
don't want
know,
help,
like I don't mean to cut you off, but I can remember another scenario with a different person. I never knew they had a mental health issue until one day I seen them. It's a lot. It's a lot. We're about to pray. It's a sister, and she walks up in front of me. You know how homeless people are homeless in the streets,
hmm
how their clothes are. She looked just like that, and she said her hair was crazy, and she said talking about something crazy, and I was like, it's like, is it? It's a lot, and I was like, and then I seen her normal like a couple of months ago. And then I was talking to her. She came back to the masjid, and I was talking with her later on after, and she's like, her husband put sihr on her, and she lost her children, and but reality, she has schizophrenia, and she refused to take the medication.
yeah, that happens
And
all.
because of that, her one of her children was they found him on a train. He's like 8 years old,
Subhanallah. Yeah.
And then I was like, and then the community, when these people come to the Muslim community, in this particular community, people don't want to help them. The people board masters, the boards of masjid. That's why I told myself I really don't never want to work for a masjid. I'd rather start my own thing because the board, a lot of masjid, if those people can't bring in money through donations, they don't care about them. All right. So how you deal with people like this, and
Who is
because
people
when
like?
you start to talk with them,
Who is people
I'm
like this?
sorry, how you deal with people who have issues, mental health issues, refusing to take medication,
hmm
and I tell them in the conversations when we sit down, Islamic Q&A, I show them it's permissible to take those psych meds.
hmm
Some of them would tell me they need a ruqiyah. I say, okay, it's permissible to do ruqiyah and take psych medication. They don't want to do it. They don't want to do it. They would tell me, no, my husband put the sihr on me, and I don't need the medication. I just need the ruqiyah. We do ruqiyah. They don't get no response from it. How you deal with the peoples who are refusing
Who is the
to get,
people?
or the individuals in the community who have mental health who needs help? Thank you for correcting my language.
The thing about it is, you got to think about if I have schizophrenia, right? A lot of times I have delusions, so it's not reality. So it's even more that you have to be patient that that's not real. Um, so I like, and a lot of people who do have schizophrenia, a lot of times they have delusions of persecution. So delusions of persecution and things like that are really, really hard for people to realize that they got an issue. Um, it's easier when people have uh delusions where they hear stuff but don't see it. Like those are easier. But when they have like delusions of persecution and all those kinds of things, I tell people all the time, a lot of times people that have delusions, their delusions are usually based in some type of reality. And I know you might be like, how the heck is that? So I'm gonna give you an example with this one person that I knew who they was like, my family poisoning me. My family is poisoning me. And I'm like, really? Your family poisoning you? But again, I told you I always have the idea that is always some truth in it. Come to find out, the family was putting their medication in their food. Now, to them, you're poisoning me. You putting something in my food that I don't know what it is. You're trying to poison me. It was this other guy who he used to come to a group. It was one of my friends. He used to say that people was following him. That was like his delusion. That the army was gonna come get him. They was following him and blah blah blah. Then one day he got arrested. Yeah, the police was following you. You know, what's the army? It
Yeah.
was the
Oh,
police.
got you. I got you. I got
You
you.
know, so it's a lot of times it is based in some type of reality. So again, it's always there, being inquisitive. But what sometimes people don't know too is that a lot of the psych meds, the ones that do realize that they wind up having a problem, they start taking psych medications. The medications be so harsh on their bodies and they get sick, so they don't want to take it. And instead of like saying like, oh, go take medication, say, hey, the next time you go to an appointment, no, I can't, I might not be able to be there physically, but hey, like, let me be there to advocate for you with your doctor. Because it may be, hey, doctor, she's not taking her medication. I did talk to her. She said it's making her feel this way. That's why she stopped. Is there some another option? Because a lot of times they're not going to say that because they don't think it's another option, because people don't show up to their appointments with them. People don't advocate for them. And one thing about doctors is they're going to push whatever they think that they want to. They're not going to listen to the person when they say, I don't feel well. I don't feel like myself. I feel like a zombie. Because a lot of times they become zombie like too, where it's just like there's no semblance of what they used to be, and it's a hardship.
Mm.
So not saying that you have to be the only person, but having a team of people that if they came through the door, it's like, okay, I know with such and such, or I know such and such. Every time October come, because her mom died in October, she stopped taking her meds. you know let's get her some, um make sure she has support around October to make sure that she keep taking her meds. I know, and this is why I said it's important to get to know people. I know Judy down the street. She started taking her meds, but we know every 4 months she feels like she's doing so much better and that she's cured. She no longer needs the medication. So it's January now. So in March, let's start having some people around her to make sure that she's continuing her medication. Once she get over that hump, put her inside a support group that we know for sisters that take medications, and whatever the case may be, that may be helpful for the person. So again, it's about getting to know
Mm.
your the people that's there, and when you get to know them, you can anticipate their needs when you get to know them. So like it's just
So making it some type of support team. I'll keep that in my mind now. Next time I'm in that type of, if I'm in that particular again, working in these communities, I know exactly what to do. So make like
yeah.
a support.
Hmm.
Or what up now? Now I know we got a little bit off topic, but I
Not
really
really,
want to know.
not really, and the reason why is because this is all still about communicating with the entire people. Because if I know, again, like say if I have a group of people where I know Susie, Joe, Milan, whoever, they have mental health issues, so then I have my group of people where I be like, hey, um once a month, we're going to go around to these individuals' houses, make sure that they have their bare necessities. Hey, do you got your medications? Hey, do you got soap, rag, blah, 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 blah. Make sure you have all these essential basic needs being there. Is there anything that I can do for you? But because when you do that, and it makes people feel like you care, it makes them less likely to want to go for their medications too, because they want to continue to have the interaction with other people. You know.
I think to make this the last and final question because we've been over an hour. Why people who have mental health issues,
Mhm.
marriages don't work?
Why do people who don't have mental health issues, marriages don't work?
Well, I find the ones who have mental health issues like schizophrenia, bipolar, from the women, I find that they always marry and divorce like once or twice a year.
Mhm. And I've seen women who don't have mental health issues marry once or twice a year.
I told you Philly is special. I keep on telling you that.
Oh, okay. So, I can't, so because,
Mm,
because this is my experience.
mm.
Um,
Outside of Philly, I don't see my companions, brothers and sisters in New York marrying 2 times a year, except for those individuals who have mental
I,
health.
I knew somebody who didn't have no mental health issues. They was married for 2 days.
I seen that too in Philly. Yeah, I seen that in Philly. Yeah, seen that in Philly. Yes. Outside of Philly, I haven't seen that, but in Philly, yeah, I've seen that a
Yeah.
lot.
Uh, but
Mm,
I think too, it's about, I don't think it's about, more than likely, not, I don't know for sure, but it's probably because of the lack of transparency.
mm,
But so if I meet a sister or brother who had mental health issues, but no one knew about it, and because actually, no, matter of fact, I had a brother tell me that a sister didn't tell him that she had mental health issues. And when they got married, she had all these psychotropic medications, and it just went left. Where if somebody is honest about what's going on with the person, it might be easier to deal with because they know what to expect. So like I did foster care for a little while, and just to give you an idea, like they were famous for not telling you everything that a child come with. So I had a girl come, and I do hijama.
mm,
And so, of course, I have razors in my house and stuff like that, stuff that you can cut yourself with. When she gets to my house, probably like a week in, I wound up seeing her wrists; they were all cut up. I
mm,
said, "Why wouldn't you tell me this?" Because she wound up finding my box of razors. Because I had 1,000 of me. Well, I think it's 100. I'm not over exaggerating. It's 100 razors in a box. So she took some, and she went to town. And
mm,
I'm like, if you would have told me that, I still would have accepted her. I just would have made sure I put sharp objects away. So people got to be honest about what they're dealing with before they get into a marriage.
mm. Okay, because I noticed the communication skill. Some of the sisters I met who have mental health and the brothers, that some of the divorce I noticed when one of the spouse or both of them have a BPD, but they're not getting the issue taken care of. So I might find a sister, she might be narcissistic, or the brother might be narcissistic, or the brother might have some type of behavior problem.
Mhm.
Uh, it's not being dealt with. But when they're married, these are the reasons why they're having the fallouts, or there's a problem with the communication. For example, I give you example. I was talking to a sister. She was from Nigeria. She wanted her husband. They was married like for a week. He divorced her, right?
Mhm.
And he's a doctor. The brother's a doctor, and the sister, she's into the business world. And I'm trying to understand, a doctor, you marry a brother's a doctor, you're divorced in a week over some. She asked him something. So when I approached the brother, I called him because he wanted to get from her the wedding ring, the mahar, which is a very expensive ring. So I was telling him, because he gave her talak, that's her right to keep the ring. He was taking her to court. So when I was talking to him, man, this guy, I couldn't get even 2 minutes on the phone with this guy. I mean, he was very narcissistic. Sometimes I think people have some of these behavior problems, and this is causing problems in their communication with their spouse and with other peoples.
Mhm.
How can we a little bit, what are some mechanism we can use to have better communication skills with us? Because the Muslim community, especially the African American Muslim community, we don't have unity with each other. A lot of it is egos and communication. How can we fix some of the communication issues?
So,
Like some of us don't know how to disagree. We disagree. It's like we don't want to talk to this person. Never. I have somebody right now. I have brothers who disagree with me over something small. Block, delete. I'm never talking to this guy. And I'm like, the thing that we disagree about, it shouldn't cause us to never want to talk to each other.
well, don't take it personal because a lot of times when people respond like that, it's because it's already something that they believe about themselves.
Mm,
Whenever you see someone overreact about anything, it's because they already believe it in themselves. They're going to deny it. They're going to tell you that you're being disrespectful. But the truth of the matter is they believe it. So I always like to use myself as an example. Growing up, my dad used to call me stupid all the time. I used to hate it. So now, whenever I interpret that someone is trying to call me stupid, it makes my blood boil. I know I'm smart. Obviously, like I went and got a master's degree, good grades with, I could did it in my sleep. But a part of me still, I know, believes that. So it still is a trigger for me. But it don't have nothing to do with you.
mm,
It's me.
mm,
Period. And so whenever you see somebody overreact about something, but like, why are you lying? You calling me a liar? Because you a liar. Like, you know.
mm,
Or like I've been married before and I'll be talking to somebody and they'll be like, I'm not a weak man. And I'm like, I didn't say that, but I'm glad to know that you believe that you're a weak man. Okay, so now how can we deal with that? They're like, I
mm,
don't think I'm a weak man. Guess you do. I never said
mm,
it. I never said it. That's your interpretation of what's happening because we're having a conversation about household chores, and you feel like because we're having this conversation, you think you're weak, or for whatever reason. I don't know. Like, that's why I say you have to pay attention to what people say and what they don't say, because what they don't say is just fillers. It's really just fillers.
mm,
It's the stuff that they don't say, and I'm not saying that it's always malicious or intentional. It's just that's how we were taught to communicate. Instead of saying, Zah, when we have these kinds of conversations and stuff like that, it makes me feel like I'm not being a good husband towards you. And so I'm being real defensive and making it all about you. And then I feel weak or whatever the case may be. I don't know. But if someone ever overreacts to something, it's because they already believe it. Now, and I'm saying overreact. I'm not talking about you go and get in somebody's face and you punch them in the eye and then they try to punch you back in the eye and you be like, you overreact. Like, no, like, I'm sorry. Like, a law does not like the transgressor. And if you transgress against someone, they're going to transgress against you too, so don't do that. But what I'm saying is this, if you're having a conversation with somebody and somebody introduce something to the conversation that you never said or you didn't you weren't thinking like that, that's within themselves.
mm, That's very, it's good. It's a way to see it. People do that all the time, but but with how can we fix that? Like, for example, we talk about Black people's issues and coming together. How can we fix that? Because I see our peoples, we would disconnect, discommunicate over the smallest little thing. And that caused a lot of issues for the Black community, not getting things together as a unit. Especially I try to promote on my Facebook page, ethno aggregation. But I
Mm-hmm.
noticed the smallest little thing, we fall out, then we want to deal with each other no more. Especially amongst African American Muslims, it's very common in African American Muslim community.
Well, one, we got to be proactive. So being proactive is raising our children, brother, to deal with conflict and corrective feedback. That's number one. We have to do it because the problem is we don't even correct our kids. And I've seen parents, I've seen it. Parents, their child would do something wrong, and then maybe an adult will correct them. They're like, don't tell my kid what to do," and blah 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 blah. And then so basically it teaches the child that can't nobody correct you or say nothing to you. Whatever you do is what you do, and there's no consequences. So when people do, they never learn how to handle corrective feedback. Thank you, Tiffany. You never learned how to deal with corrective feedback. You have to. But also too, starting to be accountable for your own behavior. That's the hardest thing ever. It is the hardest thing ever. But I'm telling you, it is so worth it when you hold yourself accountable and you take ownership, but then don't hold yourself hostage to it either. Um, because it's a lot of things that I've done in my life that's like absolutely insane and crazy. And people that ask me about it, I'm like, yeah, I did that. I apologize. Whoever it was, if I'm wrong, I apologize. I'm sorry. Inshallah will never happen again, but I'm a work in progress because again, it depends on which trigger you well, not which trigger that you activate, which triggers that's still inside me that I'm working on. Um, I have to take ownership for that. And if you don't do it, you're going to
mm,
continue to always point the finger at everybody else. You can't do that. You cannot do that. It doesn't work. You will always be unhappy, and that's just the bottom line of it. Like, it just really is. Like, and I've done some crazy things in my life that people be like, "You did it." I'll be like, "Yep, sorry. Let me make Toba. I really hope that you forgive me. If you don't, I'm okay with that too, because I'm not perfect. I'm okay with that. If you don't want to deal with me, may you have a great life, and you move on. But you have to take accountability. You just have to, because it's not everybody else. I'm sorry, it's just not everybody else. Like, I was writing my memoir, and I think I was like, by 34 years old, I had 5 divorces. I have a problem. Not, I had 5 divorces. Oh, these men, they don't know how to. No, it's me. It's me.
mm,
I
mm,
chose them. I chose them. I could have not chose them. I could have not got married. I could have fought harder for my marriage. I could have done numerous things,
mm,
but that didn't happen. That's on me. I had to take responsibility for the part that I played in it.
mm,
Period. I
mm,
can't go around blaming everybody, because then nothing changes and I keep repeating the same cycle. I have
mm,
that control, not other people.
mm,
So we have to be proactive, raising our children better. Two, we have to hold ourselves accountable. And number three, we got to stop being so sensitive. I know that's a bad thing that people always like to say, like, oh, and what I mean by stop being so sensitive, I'm not saying not have emotions. I'm not saying to suppress their emotions. What I'm saying about stop being so sensitive is that you're so hard headed that when somebody says something, you become so emotional and you reject everything that the person's saying because you in your feelings.
mm,
Feelings are information. Feelings are information. It's not reality. It's information. Basically, when you're angry, it's saying you feel passionate about this situation. What's going on? You're sad. Hey, something hurt my feelings when the situation happened. What happened? I'm feeling jealous. I'm feeling jealous because they had something that I don't have. What can I do to get the thing that I want and not from them? What can I do to get the same thing that I'm jealous over? Oh, they got a promotion. I want a promotion. Well, they did X, Y, and Z. Well, then I need to go out and do X, Y, and Z so I can try to get a promotion. Or, Allahu Island, the promotion is not for me. Maybe I go lateral to somewhere else. But we have to be open to different ways of thinking and not have this linear thinking pattern.
mm,
Like, you got to color your world with possibilities. That's the
mm,
best way I can explain it, is coloring your world with possibilities. Because even when I'm talking to somebody and I ask, like, I wonder why they think that way. I don't just be like, oh, they think that way because of this. I be like, well, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. I wonder which one. Like, I start like literally playing a narrative until it all starts to make sense about why the person is the way that they are. And we got to do that for everybody, and even within ourselves.
mm,
And like, that whole like, I'm just starting to try to get over like being physically reactive to people when stuff happen. And because I had to realize, like, growing up, no one protected me. So now that I'm older, I'm overcompensating by protecting myself more than what needs to be done
mm.
out of fear. And a lot of times we
A lot
do
of
stuff out of
a lot of
fear.
our women do that. A lot of our women they do that. Mm,
It's about fear. But
mm,
then when you have, and then if I start to understand that about myself, I can start correcting it. But then when you become vulnerable and you tell other people about it, like, hey, this is what happens to me. This is why I react this way. This is what I'm struggling with. This is what I'm trying to do. It gives people too an opportunity to say, hey, I want to deal with it. Or no, I cannot deal with it because I have my own triggers and my own things. And this is not going to work. But it, but what people do is they hide it because they don't want to be rejected. It's not about being rejected. It's because what's going to happen is you get into the relationship without being vulnerable, without telling them, and then guess what? Now the real rejection happens because when they're there, they're like, "I don't want you." Instead of
mm,
saying, instead of at the beginning, if you say it, it's like, It's not that I don't want you, it's the behaviors I don't want.
Mm, 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 mashallah. Mashallah, it's very informative.
Yeah, so
Um,
it's just thinking about stuff differently.
it's that's very, very informative. Making this special clip just for you saying all of that. Very informative. Um,
But
it's definitely informative. Inshallah, we get to have some more of these type of conversations and videos like this. I think is very beneficial. Um, Especially to clear up our minds, a lot of misconceptions, how to better way see things and do things will bring about better results in our community with ourselves and our communities. I definitely want to thank you, Barakallahu Fikum, for your time and ask Allah to give you good and that what you have learned will benefit yourself and others with it. So let's conclude and inshallah, man, I'll upload this video. So anybody who's watching, the sister has her own YouTube channel and Facebook page. I will make sure I put it in the description and anything related to her contact information. I have it in the description. Do you want to say anything else before closing?
yes, because I think this is so important. If you reach out to me via Facebook Messenger, please, please, please ask a question with your salams. I don't want to ignore people, but men have a habit, not all men, but some men, they have a habit of they say salam and then they ask me, am I married? I don't want to marry you. Like I'm just sorry. I just don't. I'm not interested in doing something like that right now. But that's number one. And don't ask your question just to later up follow up with why are you single? I'm single because that's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala want for me right now. Because if he wanted marriage for me, I would be married. I'm not in a rush to do any of those things. So just ask your mental health question. That's it. If not, I will ignore you because, the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam says it's better to be silent. So
Mm,
I'm being silent for a reason.
okay. So thank you, sister. And like I said to anybody who's following, that you can always follow the description. And also, the sister have her YouTube channel. Please subscribe. I will add that to the description page and her information for a contact. All right. Salam alaikum, sister.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.